Hello everyone, back to today's second video. I'm going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days. For today's second video is going to take us into the first week of November. We go to around the 6th of November with this update. So it looks like the Westerlies are returning. So over the past few days we've been talking about a chance of colder weather during November, but it just appears now, it's something that's been cropping up in the model output in the last few hours, last day or so, that this blocking season is probably going away, and we may, certainly for the first week, 10 days of November anyway, be looking at a return of Westerlies. So going into a much more unsettled phase of weather, we are ready for an unsettled phase where we've been under high pressure for months and months now, so we are due a spell of wet weather, and we may be starting to see the first signs of a much more unsettled, mobile westerly pattern becoming established. I have to say there's a lot of uncertainty about this outlook, because there's only something that the models have kind of been latching on to in the past day or so. So, a bit of uncertainty about it. That appears to be the trend, the way things are trending at the moment. Earlier on today, we released JMA Friday, and that's a month I look at. And that is also sort of indicator there might be some more mobility coming into the Atlantic through the course of November. So when you're doing this video, have a look at that and see what you think. We're going to start off, though, with what's happening in the tropical Atlantic, because we've got this red X just here on the chart from the National Hurricane Center. That's our next disturbance area. And that's disturbance 1 with a 90% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. Very high chance. They're saying a low pressure system located around 1,200 miles east-northeast of the northern Leeward Islands has changed little in organisation since last night. However, environmental conditions appear conducive for further development, and this system will likely become a tropical or subtropical cyclone later today or tonight, while it moves generally northward over the central Atlantic. After that time, the low is forecast to turn westward and remain well to the north or northwest of the Lesser Antilles through to early next week. So in the next 24 hours, this is going to become either tropical storm or subtropical storm Oscar. So when we look at this tomorrow, it should be a named storm if the forecast by the National Hurricane Center is correct. Right, these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. The next couple of weeks, we're looking at Birmingham today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Birmingham. This is where we're starting off at right now. Quite cold. We've got the northerly snap with us. I don't think there'll be a great deal of snow away from Scotland. Likely to be icy patches though, and certainly some wintry showers running around the coast through the course of tomorrow, but the main focus area for snow I think is going to be across central and northern parts of Scotland with this update, with this northerly. Now as we go further on into the ensemble, you'll see the temperatures are lifting up, so we're seeing the temperatures beginning to pick up, moving back towards the red line through the course of next week, particularly the second half of next week. And then the ensembles are sticking pretty close to the 30-year temperature average through the rest of the ensemble. And that's taking us through the first week and into the second week of November. Now, you'll notice the rainfall spikes are coming back quite a lot as well. So we've got plenty of dry weather over the next few days with this cold weather. Now, as we get through next week, increasingly the precipitation spikes are coming back, and quite a wet spell is actually showing up there as we're going through the first week of November. Now, lots and lots of rainfall spikes. Now, we've been here before with the models, and particularly the GFS model and its ensemble, wanting to bring in low pressure, wanting to revert us to westerlies and wet weather, and generally it hasn't really come to much. It's been overplayed, and high pressure has always come back. So, and this is a few days away. It's around a week away, or a little bit beyond a week away for the most unsettled conditions. So, as I say, there is uncertainty about this. Is the GFS and its ensemble overplaying this return of the westerlies and low pressure driving in from off the Atlantic, or are we indeed going to go into a much more unsettled phase of weather as we get into November? We'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out. Temperature anomalies are looking like that from the 26th of October to the 3rd of November, still coming out colder than average for the UK, for Ireland, and for much of Western Europe as well. It encompasses the northerly, but we've just got establishing now. These will probably trend warmer. If that ensemble is right, these will probably start to trend warmer through the course of next week. Precipitation anomalies are still holding on to drier than average conditions, particularly in the north and west in the week from the 26th of October to the 3rd of November. Bit wetter than average on the eastern side of the country, interestingly. Reason that's still relatively dry is that the most unsettled conditions are beyond the 1st of November. That's Thursday, 1st of November next week. Most of the precipitation spikes beyond that. So that's why there's still a bit of uncertainty about this, because it could be that the models are overplaying this switch back to westerly conditions. That's how the GFS is looking for Monday then, with high pressure up over Scandinavia. We're bringing in this easterly wind, mesoeasterly coming in for the start of next week, still holding on to cold weather through the early part of next week. And then low pressure just begins to take over underneath this area of high pressure. So we've got low pressure down to our southwest. We've also got low pressure to our east. They're kind of like amalgamating close to the country, so quite how much rainfall there is with that is a little bit uncertain, but certainly eastern parts of the country might get some rain, some heavy rain around Tuesday. That's Wednesday next week. Again, low pressure just generally sort of developing close to the country. It's really in the second half next week that we begin to move this area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic, and so that's the return of the westerlies towards the end of next week. This is Friday, 2nd of November. This low pressure is moving in from the Atlantic, bringing the winds back into the west, but also starting to bring bands of rain in from off the Atlantic as well. And then we're going to a much more unsettled spell of weather. So this is heading up towards day 10, which today is bonfire night, with low pressure well and truly in charge of the weather from the Atlantic, moving bands of wet and windy weather in from off the Atlantic Ocean. You see there are tightly packed isobars, so it's pretty windy as well. Just much more unsettled and much more mobile than we've had for a very long time. In the more extended range of this GFS run, we keep this unsettled weather going till right at the very, very end, when we start to get some high pressure beginning to reach back up from the southwest. That's certainly the 11th of November as far as we can go with this GFS run. High pressure ridging up from the southwest, settling things down at least temporarily, but that's a much more unsettled and mobile spell of weather through the first week to 10 days of November than we've had for quite a long time. ECWF looks like that, so again the winds are in from the east on Monday, a cold start to the coming week, but eventually low pressure begins to take over underneath that Scandinavian high. And as we go through into the last stages of next week, it's a little bit delayed, bringing this low pressure in from off the Atlantic Ocean. But eventually it does do it, and we start to move this more mobile pattern in from the Atlantic as we get to day 10, looking very unsettled. That's bonfire night, Monday 5th of November. It looks very unsettled. Low pressure is parked almost over top of the UK, will be bringing showers or longer spells of rain. And then finally we go through to the GEM, finally for the models, we go through to the GEM. Again, we've got those easterly winds, bring the cold start to next week. Gradually through next week, it turns more unsettled with those flabby areas of low pressure. And then as we get towards the latter stages of the GEM run, this big low pressure in the Atlantic starts to bring wet and windy weather in from the Atlantic Ocean. That's how we finish up at day 10. Looking very westerly, we've got some high pressure to the south-southwest, low pressure up to the northwest. Maybe not quite as unsettled as the other two models, but certainly more mobility is showing up there. So with this more mobile pattern that the models have suddenly latched onto over the past few hours, you would expect more in way of rainfall. This is the 5-day accumulated precipitation forecast based on the GFS run we was just looking at from the weatheroutlook.com. So in the next 5 days from today, not all that much precipitation, I have to say. There is some across northern parts of Scotland, some around the coast. That's from the showers being produced by this northerly, but most places actually not having very much precipitation at all, just at 1, 2, 3 millimetres for most parts of the country in the next 5 days. But the 10-day precipitation, accumulated precipitation forecast is increasing rainfall now. So we see that around the coast, again, it is wettest around the coast, but even inland, many places in the next 10 days are now going up to kind of like 25 millimetres, an inch of rain. Parts of Western Scotland getting close to 40 millimetres, as is Northern Ireland too. Just telling us that between days 1 to 5, probably not too much in the way of precipitation at all, but from days 5 to 10, it does look as though things start to turn a good deal more unsettled. Now, as I say, it could be that the models are overplaying. They're overplaying this return of the Westerlies through the early part of November. We've been here several times over the past few months as we've had this prolonged dry spell. Remember, the dry spell started back in May, and except for the odd interruption where we've, like a couple of weeks ago, be 2 weeks on Sunday when we had some torrential rain, gave an inch of rain for some parts of the country, except for the odd day where there's been quite a bit of wet weather, actually, particularly for England and Wales, it has been very, very dry since May. So we are overdue a spell of unsettled westerly wet weather. We've been here several times over the past few months where the moles have wanted to bring the westerlies back, wanted to return us to a much more unsettled pattern, and except for a few days where it's turned a little bit more unsettled, it's generally never lasted all that long. So it might be overplaying this switch. I want to wait another couple of days before I'm all that confident about it. I think tomorrow's model runs will be quite enlightening, but at the moment it does look as though the early part of November could be turning a good deal wetter, good deal more unsettled, and also as those westerlies come in, southwesterlies probably quite a lot milder too, particularly in comparison to the latter stages of October. How long this will go on for as well, it remains to be seen. Sometimes when you have a prolonged dry spell, when you finally unleash wet weather, it can go on and on and on for a very long time. Other times it can just be a very short-lived, brief switch, and then you can go back to the anticyclonic conditions you were in before. So we'll need to wait and see about that as well. All rather uncertain, but certainly it looks like last stage of next week, Westerlies could start to come back and then go into a more Atlantic-driven spell of weather. If you're wondering about winter, if you're worried about what effect this could have on winter, don't be too concerned about this. 2009, you'll remember, had very prolonged dry weather through September and October, had lots of high pressure. Then in November 2009, the pattern switched. It turned exceptionally wet, also very mild, but it was exceptionally wet in November 2009. And we got to December, and that's when the Atlantic started to run out of puff. We started to build up high pressure in the northern latitudes. It eventually took us into a very cold winter, or a cold to very cold winter for 09-10, starting from around the middle of December and running through January and into February as well. So it probably means very little for the winter, but it does look as though we are on course for a much more mobile spell of weather for the first week to 10 days of November. We shall keep you posted. Lots of updates coming up over weekend. Tomorrow I've got weekend forecast. We'll have another week to 10 day update as well, and starting us off 10 AM tomorrow, we'll have the second season model roundup for winter 2018-19. We get 11 long range models together to see what they're all showing for the winter for only the second time this year. And then on Sunday we'll have your 9th winter update, and we're also going to have the final written update for Christmas, because Christmas video updates begin, as always, on the 1st of November, which is less than 1 week away now. So come back for all of the updates over the weekend. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.